Imagine a nation so small it could fit comfortably within a single city block, yet it wields a fortune vast enough to rival the most formidable corporations on Earth. Welcome to the Vatican, the world's smallest sovereign state, and the epicenter of the wealthiest religion on the planet, the Catholic Church. Despite its tiny size of just 0.27 square kilometers, this sovereign city-state has amassed wealth beyond imagination. With over 1.3 billion followers worldwide, the Catholic Church stands as the second largest religion globally, a colossal empire funded largely through donations from its devotees. Yet the true extent of the Vatican's wealth remains shrouded in secrecy. Official reports often depict a church in financial straits, pleading for more contributions. But dig deeper, and you'll find a different picture. For instance, in Australia alone, the church's assets are valued at an astonishing $30 billion, surpassing even global giants like Starbucks. Simple calculations reveal that the Catholic Church could be sitting on a global wealth of over $2 trillion, putting it in the same league as the world's largest corporations. So, how did the Vatican amass such extraordinary wealth over the centuries? It all started on what people believe to be Saint Peter's final resting place, a humble burial ground that turned into a church. But things didn't really kick off until Emperor Constantine decided to flex his architectural muscles in the 4th century and build the first Saint Peters Basilica. That set the stage for the Vatican's rise to global fame. A few centuries later, the role of the Pope evolved beyond spiritual leadership. He was calling the shots in European politics too. How, you ask? This shift can be traced back to the 8th century and a pivotal event known as the Donation of Pepin. In this arrangement, Pepin the Short, the Frankish king, granted a significant portion of land to the Pope, thereby establishing the Papal States. This marked a turning point, as the Pope not only gained temporal power, but also became a key player in the political landscape of Europe. Now, here's where things get juicy. During the Middle Ages, the popes weren't content with just blessing people and hosting Sunday Mass. They crowned emperors, got involved in wars, and essentially acted like Europe's power brokers. And all that power required cash. Thus, the Vatican's grandeur, marked by its patronage of the arts and culture, as well as its extensive expenditures, was funded largely by contributions from the common people. Taxes soared, but even then, it wasn't enough to keep the party going. So, the Vatican introduced a new approach: the sale of indulgences. Essentially, people were offered the chance to reduce their time in purgatory in exchange for a financial contribution. For a significant donation, individuals could secure spiritual benefits and, in a sense, purchase their path to salvation. It was an innovative strategy that combined religious practice with financial transactions. But not even indulgences could protect the Vatican from the chaos that came with the French Revolution in 1789. Napoleon, never one to shy away from extortion, started demanding massive payments, and other European leaders quickly followed suit. The Pope? He called it the work of the devil, but spoiler alert, Satan didn't send any refunds. By the early 19th century, the Vatican was drowning in debt. Now, you might think, how much worse could it get? Oh, just wait. In 1848, the people finally had enough. They weren't just tired of being taxed, they were furious. So, what did they do? They stormed the Vatican and assassinated the papal prime minister. That's right, the ultimate mic drop of medieval protests. With rebellion at their doorstep and funds rapidly running out, the Vatican tried a few reforms. Nothing too crazy, just a little more freedom of speech and the release of over 1,000 political prisoners. But surprise, surprise, it didn't fix things. Cue the most unexpected plot twist: the Pope turning to the Rothschilds for a bailout. Yes, those Rothschilds, the mega-rich Jewish family that's a favorite in conspiracy circles. Was it awkward for the Vatican? Oh, absolutely. But hey, desperate times, desperate measures. The Rothschilds came through with a cool 50 million francs, roughly $2 billion today, giving the Vatican some breathing room. Unfortunately, even that wasn't enough. In 1870, Italy decided it was game over and invaded Rome, effectively ending the Papal States. All those 15,000 square miles of land? Reduced to a tiny 0.17 square mile enclave. Vatican City as we know it today. It's the late 19th century, and the Vatican is doing what it does best: riding the wave of political drama while somehow staying relevant. During this time, a group known as the Black Nobles emerged, a collection of approximately 60 Italian families with deep loyalty to the Pope. Sounds pretty noble, but things are about to get interesting. The church was facing a major turning point, and the Pope, in a move no one saw coming, decided to dive headfirst into real estate. The Vatican wasn't just preaching about spiritual salvation anymore. It was flipping properties like a 19th century real estate mogul. And guess what? The market was booming, and the Pope struck gold. Seeing the Vatican make it rain, the Black Nobles followed suit, investing in the same properties, and for a while it seemed like everyone was living the dream. But remember, what goes up must come down, and down it went. By 1887, the real estate bubble burst with all the grace of a lead balloon, and the Vatican found itself once again in a financial pickle. It's like they couldn't catch a break. So what's a church to do when it's broke? Well, in a stroke of divine creativity, the Vatican introduced Peter's Pence, essentially a holy fundraiser. The message: if you want to buy yourself a ticket to heaven, throw a little something in the offering basket. And what do you know? It worked. Donations flooded in, and the Vatican was back in the game, this time doubling down on investments. Clearly, the lesson of the real estate crash didn't sink in too deep. But then, just as the Vatican was beginning to experience financial recovery, World War I erupted, disrupting everything. A new pope had just taken office, and as Europe went up in flames, the Vatican's donations went down faster than a sinking ship. Facing a budget disaster, the Pope tried to keep Italy out of the war, but Italy had other plans. In 1915, they teamed up with the Allies, and the Vatican's wallet took another hit. Now, difficult times came, and what did the Vatican do? They rented out one of their properties in Rome to an arms manufacturer who supplied Germany. When this tidbit became public, the church claimed ignorance, but the damage was done. By the time 1933 rolled around, the Vatican was hemorrhaging money to the tune of about 100 million lira annually. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Finally, the Pope got wise and brought in a professional financial advisor. This guy worked his magic, diversified the Vatican's investments, and boom, financial recovery. Suddenly, the Vatican was swimming in cash again, kicking off a new era of profitability. And thus, the Church's financial resurrection was complete. Was this a divine intervention or just really good timing? Well, this is where things start to get even more complicated. World War II rolls around, and the Vatican? Well, it decided to take a rather different approach from the whole neutral observer stance it tried to maintain during the First World War. Instead of keeping their focus on religious matters, the Pope decided to dabble in the murky world of politics. What could go wrong, right? Enter Mussolini, Hitler, and a Vatican that's somehow rubbing elbows with fascist regimes. Now, there are whispers that the Vatican struck a deal with Hitler himself. Allegedly, the Third Reich agreed to skim a nice 8 to 10% off the wages of Catholic Germans, conveniently funneling that straight into Vatican coffers. But wait, it gets even juicier. Rumor has it that after the death of the sitting pope, Hitler may have offered 3 million gold Reichsmarks, that's around $12.6 million back then, to handpick the next pope. Imagine the audacity, trying to pick the leader of the Catholic Church like he was shopping for a new cabinet member. While the new pope wasn't exactly Hitler's choice, let's just say he wasn't eager to rock the boat when it came to relations with Germany. With money flowing into Vatican City again, the Holy See faced a new challenge. What to do with all this cash? You'd think it would be a holy problem, but no. With the Allies closing in, the Vatican's finances, stored in Western banks, faced the threat of being frozen or even blacklisted. The situation demanded a swift solution. That's when the Vatican's financial advisor stepped in with a bold plan. Why not create our own bank? And so, the Institute for the Works of Religion, IOR, was established, an exclusive and highly discreet financial institution located right within the Vatican. Why deal with pesky wartime regulations when you can have your private vault? And the best part? No one outside the Vatican had to know anything. No balance sheets, no annual reports, no prying eyes. Now, imagine you're a wealthy Italian, or anyone with a fat stack of cash, and you're not too keen on having your fortune scrutinized by the Allies. Where do you park your money? You guessed it, the Vatican Bank. With one branch and one shareholder, the Pope, of course, the IOR became a fortress for secret deposits. Even Hitler, so the rumors go, made regular deposits into the Vatican's vault, with a little help from his Swiss friends. Because why not? After the war, though, things didn't exactly quiet down. The Vatican found itself tangled in moral and financial messes that would eventually lead to scandals that would rock the global banking world in the 1980s and 1990s. The Church's wartime dealings, especially its relationship with the Germans, raised some pretty tough questions. And here's a particularly grim one. What about those life insurance policies of Jewish families sent to concentration camps? Some sources allege that the Vatican accepted payments for these policies, but getting a payout required the impossible: death certificates for people murdered in the camps. These funds, belonging to families who never returned, ended up right in the Vatican bank. So the Vatican, now swimming in this morally ambiguous fortune, found itself at the center of a financial web that would only get more tangled in the years to come. By the mid-1950s, the Vatican's financial clout had swelled to enormous proportions, though the Church preferred to downplay just how large its empire had grown. Even as the Pope claimed the Vatican's wealth was a fraction of the reported $13 billion, its financial operations expanded quietly, largely protected by a shroud of secrecy. This silence, coupled with mounting allegations that the Vatican Bank was laundering money for the Italian Mafia, piqued the interest of both the Italian government and international financial watchdogs. Instead of halting the illicit activities swirling around the Vatican's finances, the Italian government found a way to turn the situation to its advantage by taxing regional banks owned by the Vatican. This was no surprise given the widespread corruption that had taken root in post-war Italy, where the lines between government, organized crime, and major institutions like the Vatican had blurred beyond recognition. As the Vatican Bank became more entrenched in shady financial dealings, it turned into a linchpin in a much larger network of criminal financial operations that stretched across Italy and beyond. The bank's willingness to launder money for the Mafia and other criminal entities laid the groundwork for the explosive banking scandals of the 1980s and 1990s, especially those tied to the infamous Banco Ambrosiano. One of Italy's largest private banks at the time, Banco Ambrosiano shared a notorious connection with the Vatican Bank through its chairman, Roberto Calvi. Known to many as God's banker because of his tight relationship with the Vatican, Calvi was deeply involved in a convoluted web of financial crimes, including embezzlement, money laundering, and illicit fund transfers that spanned international borders. The Vatican Bank played a pivotal role by providing the cloak of secrecy and the financial tools necessary to shift massive amounts of money without detection. By the late 1970s, the scale of these activities ballooned to such a degree that law enforcement and regulators could no longer look the other way. The Vatican Bank's entanglement in these crimes came to the forefront as investigations progressed, and by 1982, Banco Ambrosiano spectacularly collapsed. The bank's demise was one of the most significant financial failures in Italy's history, with losses reaching a staggering $1.2 billion. A large portion of this money had mysteriously vanished into secret Vatican bank accounts and offshore havens with little to no financial oversight. The collapse of Banco Ambrosiano exposed the deep-rooted corruption linking the Vatican Bank, organized crime, and the Italian financial system. Roberto Calvi, the man at the heart of the scandal, was found dead under mysterious circumstances in London in 1982. His body was discovered hanging from Blackfriars Bridge, initially ruled a suicide but later determined to be murder. The symbolism of his death, he was found beneath a bridge historically linked to the Blackfriars Secret Society, a name suspiciously similar to the Masonic Lodge, only deepened the intrigue surrounding his demise. Many believed Calvi was silenced to prevent him from disclosing the Vatican Bank's full role in the criminal activities surrounding Banco Ambrosiano. The aftermath of the Banco Ambrosiano scandal was far-reaching, shaking not just Italy's banking system but also the global financial world. Under immense pressure, the Vatican Bank agreed to pay $240 million to creditors of Banco Ambrosiano as compensation, a sum that was seen as a tacit acknowledgement of its involvement. Still, the Vatican never publicly admitted any guilt in the affair. But even as the dust settled from the scandals of the 1980s, the Vatican Bank wasn't off the hook. The 1990s brought a fresh wave of controversy, with the bank once again being implicated in money laundering schemes and other financial misconduct. This time, however, the outcry was louder, and demands for transparency reached a fever pitch. The Vatican Bank became a lightning rod for criticism, facing accusations of operating with zero accountability or oversight. Facing these growing pressures, the Vatican began to make moves toward reform. External auditors were brought in, and a financial watchdog was established to monitor the bank's operations. These reforms were aimed at cleaning up the institution's tarnished image and aligning with the increasing global demand for banking transparency. However, even as the Vatican Bank attempted to wash its hands of its past misdeeds, the Church soon found itself grappling with a different financial crisis, not due to scandals over hidden wealth, but rather due to dwindling donations and growing financial strain. By the late 20th century, disturbing reports began surfacing about priests abusing children. The revelation that those meant to lead and protect within the Church were involved in such heinous acts was a major blow to Church donations. Faced with a crisis that threatened its very existence, the Vatican was determined to suppress the scandal at all costs. Admitting to the abuse would spell disaster for them. By January 2002, the Catholic Church had already shelled out approximately $175 million in settlements to families from Australia to Europe. Instead of a straightforward apology, the Pope at the time offered excuses, which only led to more lawsuits and an escalating financial burden. By 2014, the cost of settlements had skyrocketed to over $3 billion. As donations plummeted, the Vatican had to act fast. In 2013, following the resignation of the reigning Pope, they decided it was time for a dramatic overhaul. They elected a new, modern Pope, one who could resonate with the public and project genuine change. Enter Pope Francis. His ascension marked a strategic shift aimed at repairing the Church's tarnished image. With the strategic assistance of a pope who seemed to genuinely connect with the masses, the Vatican masterfully shifted attention away from the questionable origins of their vast wealth and power. This clever maneuver allowed them to remain in the public's good graces. Fast forward to today, and the Church boasts over 1.3 billion followers and control assets worth around $2 trillion. So, what's your take on the financial power of the Vatican? Share your opinions in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating content.